Hello, people.
Greetings.
We are here. Let's do it.
All right,
How's everybody doing today? Let's hop into today's chat.
How's everyone feeling in these energies?
Oh, it's gonna be fun. So welcome everybody to another live broadcast here at Mission Starbase. Today we have a new guest and her name is Abby. Abby, if you could kindly introduce yourself to everybody in the chat who is watching now and in the future. Thank you for coming on and we're happy to have you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Wait, can I do my intros really quickly?
Okay, let's do it.
Okay, here we go. Okay, the Pleiadian goddess, knighted as the queen of Mount Shasta, she'll cleanse your soul with just one bowl, like a Rasta. The bougie healer. That's good, everyone.
I love that. That's awesome.
Right? We can all do these. You can do these next time. The Arcturian queen, she came down from the mothership to help us remember our cosmic identity as a member of the Galactic Federation. So be to the starseed.
Woo!
The starseed lightworker who can talk you through a past life, she'll have you speaking as your higher self in no time. Psychic medium Abby.
Ooh.
That's good.
Good job. The commander of truth, founder of the Starseed Academy, he'll channel you a message you won't ever forget. Starseed agent.
That's right. That's awesome.
Anyway, take it away, Abby.
Awesome.
Let's get into like how you do things, and then let's deliver messages that you have gathered because your work is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. So for all of my past life regression sessions, basically what I do is I use the Zoom app. This app allows us to really do regressions anywhere all over the world, as long as they have a good internet connection. And I do record sessions, and really the session itself, getting people into that state, is all about like the tone of my voice. So I often drop my voice octave several levels, almost to a whisper, and I am allowed to let them follow my voice, and my voice really just kind of does it all for me. That's really how the sessions go, and they're amazing. We go into a past life. I take people into the life in between lives, which is where we go after we die. And then we also go to the higher self, and we ask all of the burning questions that everybody wants to know, like, what is my purpose? Why am I here? All of that fun stuff.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. How would you say that every single client is really different, right? And everyone,
Yes.
Is there stuff that comes up that's like emotional in the sessions?
Yes, and honestly, that's kind of what I feel like will resonate the most with people that do a session, because you can make stories, right? But you can't fake emotion. And typically in these sessions, they get extremely emotional, especially if there's trauma that was suppressed due to a death or, something that may have happened in that life. When we go into those scenes, it's an instant emotion. I have people that pretty much cry every session, but that's good because we want them to release whatever it is that they've suppressed.
Right. That's awesome. Would you say, so in each session, would you say what is, do people just do one session, or do some need ongoing sessions based on how much work they need to go through?
Right. Honestly, typically the session is a one-time thing. I do have a couple of clients who have come back, but they're writing books, they're writing journals, or they're doing something for their spiritual work. And they find that when they do a session, they can connect with that higher part of themselves to give them the pieces they feel like they're missing. So it really depends from person to person. But for the most part, when we get to the higher self, they've already been channeling their past life for a while, and the higher self usually comes right through. The one thing that I love about the higher self and how I know when people are connected, because the higher self speaks in third person. So he does good or she does good. They will call them by their name. But the higher self always refers to themselves as they, we, because it's a combined energy, not just a one person energy.
That makes complete sense. So I've noticed because I do BQH. I don't know if you know Beyond Quantum
I
Healing.
do BQH too, yes.
Oh my God, that's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, so you're diving into these deep things, and I'm sure that you've noticed that after these sessions, like you have people completely shift into a higher frequency, and it's something that like I'm sure that you're aware of. It's like the person needs to be really open to it and ready to receive that kind of shift and change in their life, and really be willing to not be attached to those old things anymore. And like you just said, things can come up that like they're not even aware of.
Yeah.
So how long have you been doing this, and how did you get into it?
So I've been doing it. I'm just looking at the month here. I've been doing it for it's actually a year this month. And I honestly got into it just by complete accident. I was scrolling through TikTok one morning, like at 2 a.m. I couldn't sleep. And I came across this creator who does the same thing. And I was just enamored. I couldn't stop watching. I got like full body chills. And for the first time ever in my life, I was like, oh, I have to do this. I'm meant to do this. Yeah. And so I studied under like the QHHT, Dolores Cannon. I live.
She's amazing.
Yes, her teachings are like the foundation for me of everything that I know. But then from there, I wanted to do remote sessions, and you can't do that with QHHT. So I went down Candace Goldman's route, and I trained under her. She's just as amazing. And I've had some really, really good, hold on here, let me turn this down. Okay. I've had some really good experiences doing Candace Goldman's teachings, and it allows us to, hold on, let me see if I can do it like this. It allows me to connect with people all over the world, and I really, really enjoy it. I also learned a modality, more of a non-visual modality, from a lady named Daily Rose, and her modality kind of reminds me a lot of Candace Goldman's, but it focuses on how you feel, what you feel around you, what you know in a session, rather than just being visual. And I did that way, even people that have aphantasia, they can still have just as incredible of experience as somebody who is very visual.
Can we talk a little bit about like the dynamics of what we're doing and like how we're putting? Is it like a theta brain state?
Yes.
Are we?
Yes.
Is that we're talking about that? So
yes.
You're just sort of like introducing them to this kind of freak. When you were talking about that, it kind of reminds me of what I do when I channel, because it always comes to me as like a they. They will even refer to me in the third person, like, oh, he doesn't know this or he doesn't understand. It's a very, and I'm kind of getting it right now. It's like, it's everything. It's the collective consciousness. So even when I interpret it as like guides or Arcturians or whoever, it is like higher self. So that's really interesting.
Yeah. But that's what I love about it so much, is that it's just an inner guidance system that, so all of us have, just not all of us can access it at this moment in time.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I wanted to ask Abby, what has been, I guess, I don't want to say the craziest, or maybe the most impactful reading or session that you've done since you've started?
So it's a really good question. I grew up in a Christian community. I grew up very, very Christian. So getting into this work was really scary for me because it went against everything I'd been conditioned to believe. And when I first started, that's what I did. I asked a lot of questions to try to figure out what my truth was and where I wanted to go. And a few months back, I did a session with a client who actually walked a life with Yeshua. We know him as Jesus. That's what Christianity created. But it was beautiful because I got to learn about who he really was and what he did in his life. And for me, it just brought forth so many different validations from things I had always felt, but I couldn't elaborate them because it's frowned upon. You can't speak that kind of truth in there. And that was the biggest eye opener for me. That's kind of really what made me realize there's so much more than what we all know and are conditioned to know.
It's scary how much information has been kept from us for thousands of years.
Yeah. We were just
That's
talking about on the last episode about the 3 waves of volunteers. And if anyone doesn't know about Dolores Cannon's work, you got to go.
You got to get into it.
Her work, because a lot of things that she had, and like, yes, you're channeling people's higher selves, but you're also channeling, it can go as far back to whatever planet they were from or living on. Like it could go back to their Pleiadian self and their Pleiadian experience. And that's what she was channeling in these books, is a lot of the Pleiadian experiences, and what they were saying in those sessions is what's happening right now on the planet. So it's incredible to see how it all comes together. And anyone who doubts this work really needs to experience it. So it's like, and like you said, you do online sessions. So like, we'll put your information at the end of this and how people can book a session with you and just to experience it. Because it's something you just have to experience, right? Yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I conducted the sessions for a few months before I experienced it myself. But it's so different when you experience it. It's the feelings that you get and the emotions that you feel, they're just not emotions and feelings that you get here on Earth, especially if you go to the galaxy or the planet where your soul was created. That can bring forth a whole different kind of emotion.
How long would you say a session lasts usually for you?
So sessions typically last 3 to 3.5 hours. I had a session today that lasted right at 4 hours, but there was a lot of healing that we had to do. So 4 hours, absolute max.
Wow. That's a lot of work. Yeah.
Can we get into some of the more, like you've described creation process? I watched all of your videos, so I'm your biggest fan.
Love it.
You talk about this like so a lot of the stuff in the manifesto I actually got from Abby. Full disclosure, like I listen to your content, so she's influenced some of the work that we're doing, and some of that was that there are like these creation mirrors, or like this vision of the future, this life you're going to have that you choose to experience. Mm-hmm. Right. So that's really interesting. If we can kind of like go into that more. And then I've heard you talk about like these eggs that are created. So
okay.
Let's go into like the metaphysical a little bit.
Yes. So let's talk about these eggs, right? So
Easter
eggs, right? So ultimately, there are a couple of planets where I have discovered these eggs, these creation eggs, right? I've discovered them on Orion. I've discovered them on Arcturian. And they have also been presented in the Palladian star cluster as well. Ultimately, these eggs all go back to the species of extraterrestrial that we know as the Greys.
Yes.
Yes. And the sessions that I've done where my clients went to a life where they were a Grey, they all describe being an egg. Being an egg at the beginning of their creation, right? And when I try to ask, where did it come from? Source. It came from source. It's nothing more than a light being energy. And ultimately, this energy, it like manifests in, say, a carton, right? Like each egg has its own space in the carton. And this energy manifests in its own little carton until it becomes enough energy to hatch, to become a light being, a being. Yeah. Now, in the first life where I went to this, it was Sirius B, and I'm just trying to think here, was it Sirius or was it Arcturian? There's so many of them. But when we went to this place and the individual finally hatched from the egg, they were numbered. They didn't have names. Her number was 1133, which is ironic because that was 2 of her lucky numbers in her human form.
Yeah.
Right. Yes. Yes. And when we went to angel numbers, yes. Woo! And I took her to like her home in this life, right? Yeah. And it was very, very advanced. She described it like a mushroom, like she was going in to the mushroom. But when she got inside, there wasn't a bed. It wasn't like normal, right? There was almost imagine those showers you have that are kind of like rounded, that have like all the buttons and they're just crazy looking. That's what this device looked like. And what she did in this life is she would go into that device and send healing to whoever she was in charge of watching. Everybody was assigned certain numbers. Now, I don't have my book, but it was really interesting because in this lifetime, her being told us that there are numbers that you can use in healing. 1137 was one of them. And when I asked, how do we use these for healing? She mentioned that it was in our DNA and that all we had to do was connect with the higher self. Now, I'm still trying to figure all of this out, but that was one life. Another interesting thing, this species of gray, they are eternal. They don't ever die. So every session I've ever done, like the very first session, she was over 4,000 years old. But it's interesting because time only exists on our planet, on Earth. So trying to figure out their age is really, really difficult because they don't have time, which is so hard for like even my human mind to grasp that, right. That's not there. These species of gray seem to be they're very influential. They're very helpful. They're here to help us. Now they scare us a lot because when you see that, it's something that we've always been conditioned to not believe in. But ultimately, they're here to help us. They're here to help us on our journey. And every session I have with them, they are helping. So my client, who was the gray, that being was currently watching over and protecting her in her human life. And that's how they all end up being. It's a higher being and a higher entity that is watching and helping you through this incarnation, which is just crazy.
Wow. Yeah. I'm curious, because you said you grew up Christian. So how did you come to terms, or like how you first came across all of these kinds of lineages? Like how was the transition? Because there are so many people around the world waking up, as we know, with all kinds of different backgrounds. And some people might not know how to handle the wake-up call, essentially. So right. How did you cope with that?
It was really rough in the beginning. I'm not going to lie. I won't try to make it seem like it was all sunshine and rainbows because it was a lot. For me, I've always had the ability to communicate and see spirit and feel them. Yeah. My very first memory I have is in my crib, like interacting with a transparent being. And that's the very first memory I have in this life. So I ran from it my entire life. I ran from it because I was told it was wrong and that, you weren't connecting with the right beings or whatever the church wants you to think. I had just adopted my son. I just turned 30. We had just adopted my son, and it like all came full force. It was basically like, here it is. You can't run anymore. My empath ability kicked in, and I couldn't even go into Walmart without feeling overwhelmed and having to turn out and go back. Like I didn't do any of that stuff for probably about 6 months until I could figure out what I was experiencing and what was going on. Yeah. And really from there, it was just very slow, trying to figure out who I was and what I was feeling. I live in the Midwest. I live in Southwest Missouri. So what I do is not common at all in this area. It's still very much the Southern Bible Belt. So even that was a big barrier for me to overcome because I spent my whole life trying to please everyone. I felt like I had to be everyone's friend and agree with what everything, and when I came into this part of my life, I had to let that go. I had to stop trying to live for everyone else and learn to live for myself. It took a while, it did, but it's really led me down some absolute beautiful paths. I started out just doing mediumship type work, and then I went into psychic work and past life work, and then past life regression. And honestly, this, where I'm at now, like this is where I'm supposed to be. I have no doubt.
You feel it.
Where in the Bible Belt? Where in the Bible Belt did you grow up?
So I grew up in Kansas City, Missouri, in a town right outside of Kansas City, Missouri. But currently I live kind of like in the Springfield, Branson, Missouri area. So it's a very touristy area because of Branson. And if you're here, like in the little town that I live in, there's probably like 20 churches within like a 5-mile radius. So it's,
Interesting. I feel
yeah.
I'm from the Bible Belt too, but in Tennessee. So I grew up super Baptist Christian and watching all the hypocrisy in the church. And it's funny because now there's a lot of people who grew up in religious culture that really had to deal with the family being against what you're doing now, calling you a witch, like,
all of us here. Yep.
All of
us.
Okay, so everyone has to deal with that. And that's interesting because it's always a test of your strength and your belief in your mission. And I think that's an important thing to talk about because the closest people to you, when they call you crazy, that's what hurts the most. And it's the hardest thing in those moments to stay on the mission because it makes you just want to unplug again and or plug back into the matrix and just, I wish I could just be normal for 2 fucking seconds. No.
No, seriously.
You guys can shake your head no and act like you don't think that ever, but I know you do because there's a second in time where you're like, I wish I could just plug back in and eat a fucking piece of pizza. Just like in the Matrix, where he's sitting there and he decides to plug back in and he eats the pizza and the Coke and he's like, I can't fucking do this. I can't fucking do this. Like, you know, we all want to go back and then we're like, oh no, this is our mission and this is what we're doing. And it just takes, and that's why it's so cool that we're all here talking together right now, because it takes an incredible strength to stay committed to that mission, despite what all the people around you are saying. And then it teaches you.
Are you talking about Cypher from the Matrix, who just wants to go back and eat the steak? And
that's it.
You're having your Cypher moment. Oh,
that's it.
No, we're too far. Come on.
No, we don't really.
I feel like we're going down the hill. It's getting easier. I've already reached the. I don't know. Maybe it can get harder, but. Let's go into I feel like someone's asked you about future experiences. I'm kind of curious about that, if you can transcend into the future, but I'd also like to hear more about, you've mentioned the grays. Maybe we can get into like, with, obviously there's sensitivity around your clients and you don't want to divulge too much information, but at least some of the information that you've given out publicly, we could talk about. Lyrans or Arcturian or any other kind of, or reptilians. I feel like you talked about that the other day.
Well, let's talk about the reptilians.
You know what I mean? Like, let's just meander and see if there's some information there.
So, oh my goodness, yes. This reptilians very categorized as like a conspiracy theory, right? And I've always been completely against that. So when they first started coming up in my sessions, I was like, I just kind of blew it off. And I was like, no, let's just keep going. But then it kept happening and kept happening and kept happening. And I was like, oh shit, okay, I need to go back and listen because there's a message here. There's something bigger. Ultimately, it's like for power. On Earth, religion is for power, to gain power, right?
Yeah.
These beings gain power through our fear. And that's why I tell people it's so important to know that fear is created by the human mind. If you don't create it, it doesn't exist. And this is really important when it comes to these lower vibrational beings. They're here for power. Ultimately, what I am discovering is that they were here kind of at the beginning of creation, at the beginning of Earth's creation. They were here when the dinosaurs were here, but they can't raise vibrations like human beings can. So they stay in a lower vibration. They're attracted to that lower vibration. So an individual who is a very negative individual and resides in those lower vibrations, they're going to attract that to them. When it comes to these particular beings, the biggest message that I hear is to not give them your fear. You can't give them, that's what they want. They want you to stay small-minded. They want you to stay in the matrix of 9 to 5 and, not coming, right. And I feel like a lot of people around Earth experience these lower vibrations when they are at the same low vibration as they are. Ultimately, I think it's going to be a constant battle of light versus dark. But because of duality, you have to have the dark with the light. Like you can't have one without the other, right? So it's almost like we're coming to a time of the new earth and the earth shifting dimensions and all of that stuff where they're trying to ultimately shift earth into higher dimensions because these beings are lower vibrational. They cannot go into higher dimensions. Right. And so that's ultimately what these messages are, is to not feed into the fear, to not allow them in your space, to not allow them to make your decisions for you. Ultimately, be your own person, create your own truth, and do what you came here to do. You didn't come here to eat, sleep, and work, right? Like you came here for a bigger reason. And I feel like these beings, they don't want you to live that reason, because if you do that, you are more fucking powerful than they are. And that's what it boils down to. Wow. We have more power than them. We cannot give them our power.
It's so
That's
true.
Yeah. And I think that's why we're all so committed to this mission, is because if we raise our own individual frequencies and help as many people as we can to do the same, then we can raise the entire collective frequency into that higher state of consciousness and that higher dimension and bring heaven to earth, baby.
Yes. Yeah. And the higher self has been telling me for a year, over hundreds of sessions, that's coming. Like, we're there. I keep hearing the year 2023 and the year 2025 that's awesome. Yes. Of like the shifts that are taking place. Like the higher self explains that they are literally shifting Earth as a planet, as a rock in space, into higher dimensions. And that's why so many of us are awakening at such fast speeds right now, because we feel those higher shifts.
We do.
Yeah. Can I ask a question? It's a little like off in a little bit different direction, but I'm just curious because we do the same kind of work. Have you, and this is me, that was shown something, has anything come up through any of your clients about a meteor of any kind?
yes, it has. Excuse me.
Oh, no.
Yes. Actually, if you go back to my TikTok and listen, I recently did a session where a client asked about this. Asked if there was a meteor that was supposed to hit Earth between 2023 and 2025. These beings that we were just talking about, they are the ones that basically are like chucking them at us. That's the best way to put it. Like, honestly, that's the best way to put it.
I knew that.
Yeah.
Motherfucker.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I told you.
Now, it will come close, but it won't hit us. Like NASA is actively doing things to make asteroids explode before they get to Earth.
Bro.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's going on? This is like it's like, what's it called?
Oh my God.
The space this what's that space movie where there's literally
Deep Impact.
There's literally an alien chucking rocks at Earth.
I don't know.
Wow. Abby, I had
Super
this
Trooper.
vision a month ago, and I was telling everybody about it. But the vision was that there was a space object, and we talked about it in the last show, but real quick for you, there was a space object coming towards Earth, but I felt like there were inorganic frequencies involved in trying to make it hit Earth, and it's trying not to hit Earth. And so I feel like it could be like the next playground is like space for them to try and fuck with us.
Yes.
Because electrons are too weak now, and they're trying like do something for this. But asteroid was shown to me like a week ago, like on a license plate asteroid, and that was I had to cancel my retreat this weekend, and because things kept coming up, and then I was like, oh my God, there's an asteroid shower, and then I was like, oh my God, is an asteroid gonna come? So asteroid has been a huge theme, and it's interesting that you got the year 23 or 25, because those are the 2 years that keep popping up for me as well. That's really interesting.
That's insane. Yeah.
Synchronicities, guys. This is live synchronicity right here, right the fuck now.
That's insane.
No such thing as coincidences.
No. And honestly, like, they've done this before. There have been many close calls in our history of Earth where, like, they can't have the power that we have here, and that pisses them off. Like, they want that.
Question too about okay, so we talk about the asteroid. Now let's talk about, because I'm getting into the space weather more and the Schumann resonance, and the things, I don't know if you're aware of, like the sunspots on the sun right now.
Yeah.
That they're keeping track of because they think that, we've had like a ton of solar flares. It used to be once in a while we have a solar flare here, we have a solar flare. Now it's like every day we're having solar flares, right? And so there's a lot of people, and I haven't got a lot of clear things on this. So I'm interested to see if you have picked up anything or your clients on what people are calling the solar flash event or anything around the sun and the energies or what could happen with that. Have you or any of your clients picked up on any of that?
So I have actually not picked up on the sun very much. The one thing that I have been told is that as they shift the dimension in which Earth is in, it makes the sun more powerful during the shift. And so I have often wondered if that has anything to do with what we're dealing with right now with the sun. But I've never actually asked it, and the higher self has never fully spoke on it other than that little bit right there.
Interesting. Can you ask, please, and let us know later?
Yeah, I absolutely can. I'm going to write it down.
Please do, because I've been watching the sun, and I know we talk about it on here. There is that sunspot they're keeping an eye on, and some people are saying in our industry that if that sunspot, I think it's like C113 or something like that, has a name, if it ejects enough energy, it could cause something that's like a solar flash, which has happened apparently in the time of the dinosaurs and the Mayans.
I was going to say that's a dinosaur thing.
Yeah, so it resets an entire civilization.
Okay. That's so interesting.
Up on that.
yeah, I definitely will. That's very interesting. I know that all of the planets, they all work in unison with each other, which is hard to understand because supposedly Earth is the only one that has life, right? We are not the only one that has life. I can tell you that. I've had regressions where people went to Mars. I've done regressions where people were living on the moon. Regressions where people were living on Venus. I could go on. It's insane.
Can we talk about the ones that were living on the moon? How that
let's do a little moon.
Yes. Yeah, especially since the movie Moonfall. That movie's freaking nuts if y'all haven't seen it yet.
Yeah. So basically, the life where the client lived on the moon. She was there for a mission. She was there on a mission to ultimately create and bring life to the planet. And every time that she would get life coming, she would experience light rays that would destroy it. And so finally I started questioning, what are these light rays? Are they like solar storms? No, they were just a beam of light. And so we figured out that basically this planet has beings that don't want to share it. And she was there for a higher higher mission, right? Ultimately to prove that there can be life on that planet. But the beings that are there were basically no, this is mine. And so it was a really intense session for her, and ultimately these beings that were already there ended up being the reason why her life ended on that planet. But what was crazy about it is her purpose in that life was not to get attached to things, not to get attached to material things that you have no control over.
Yeah.
So that was like a clearing basically of her past life or other life in another dimension on the moon, which is so powerful.
Which is powerful. Now the time period, because I was trying to figure out when would this have taken place for our time, right? And they told me that it would have been around the dinosaur timeline.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Wow.
Cool.
Yeah.
Damn.
Very.
Wow.
Those beings that we talked about, they have been the reason for a lot of planets' end. I did a session where an individual lived on, I don't know if I can think of the planet's name. I want to think it was Arcturus. And at the time that she would this client lived there, right? Mm-hmm. She was an animal being. They didn't have humanoids there. They were all animal beings. And what she went into was a time when basically the planet was raided by these higher beings. And they basically just came in through the atmosphere and just obliterated everything because they wanted that planet. Now, I think since then, that planet has been able to come back from that, and they didn't actually end up taking it over. But
yeah.
Have they? Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of planets that this has happened to, and they want it to happen to Earth, but we're so much more higher vibrational than they are. They can keep trying, and it might make us live in hell for a little bit, but they're not going to succeed. They're not going to. We're here.
That's so freaking
We're
cool.
here and we're activated now. Yeah.
Yes.
Our
Yeah.
friend.
I want to ask. Oh, so.
No, go.
Okay, I wanted to ask. So I did my first, I guess, session. I think about a month or two ago. I wanted to do it again, like just in case, because I've heard, your first time, you want to do it again because you're not as comfortable or something like that. But something when I reflected back on the voice recording that was sent to me, I said that I have a clone in Orion. I don't know if that has to do with like the secret space program, if you've had anything about the SSP, but I thought it was really weird because I'm just like interesting. Like I always felt that there was some kind of tie to Orion, and I literally have it tatted on the back of my shoulder.
Okay.
I don't know why. So I'm just thinking like, what if, and I also had memories of like running and hiding in some kind of fucked up looking planet with weird beings, and we're going under tunnels and shit. So I don't know if there's like a cloning program on Orion or something. Like I'm coming to that conclusion.
Okay, so this is a little crazy. Pardon me here, because I had a session just yesterday where my client went to Orion as one of her, as one of her lives.
Okay.
And in that planet, she was a gray. Gray are on. They're on that planet as well. But it was literally a clone of her being, and they were watching over her and helping her along her path. She always felt like she was super connected to extraterrestrial energy and beings, and she channeled them, and she never knew why she channeled them because she was channeling herself.
Oh, interesting.
All right, I need to do another hypnosis. Jesus.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was gonna say our friend Daryl Anka, that's his name. He channels Bashar, and he has said, I think I just saw this last night. He said that there's been so many more harsh conditions between different species on different planets. This is a walk in the park. Yeah. They're still concealing themselves. They're still hiding. They still, like, I don't know what it is, but it's like, this is nothing. Like even the things that are going on in the world today.
Yeah.
And they're not, it's like, we're talking about like all out war, and he's sort of like described it. So if you're out there and you're wondering if it can get much worse, it's like, it's not that bad, I feel like you know what I mean? In context to your imagination and like how bad it could get. So
yeah,
I'm glad we're talking about it like this, because there's a lot of people in the spiritual community who like to really sugarcoat things and make people feel good and raise their endorphins so they continue to listen to what they're saying and build a big following or whatever it is and capitalize off that following. We're going to tell it like it is. If you're authentically here to your mission, you're going to say like, this could get worse, guys. Yes.
Yeah.
Because
it could
shift the entire conscious collective. Some shit's got to go down,
Yeah. But it's going to be an awesome outcome in the end.
It will, yes. I'm often told, like, what we experience, they don't want to, like, sugarcoat it and say it's not bad, right? Because it's hell. Like, we are going through some really crazy shit. And there is still some really crazy shit to come. But on the other side of it, there's a lot of peace. There's a lot of solitude. And there's a lot of people on Earth that will even feel that almost release of all of the pressure and everything that goes on right now.
What would you say in your timeline? I know time really doesn't exist, but when we want to think about it, like put a label on it, we're saying 23, 25, we really think some events will happen to really shift our consciousness. If you were to say about when you think that we will be fully shifted into the fifth dimension, what would you predict?
Definitely closer to 2025. I think that the shifts are happening, but there's still so many more to come. I feel like towards the end of 2025, that's when it's really going to have come full force. And you'll even be able to look back and be like, dude, I saw this. I felt this coming.
It's a 111 right now. That's confirmation.
Yeah, hey.
Well, I wanted to ask another question because I do have to go in a bit. I'm going to a concert. Totally forgot I had
awesome.
tickets like yesterday. But anyways, so I had like a dream because we all know dreams are not always just dreams when you're a starseed and all this kind of crazy shit you could see. I remember, so it's like I was in this like floating city almost. It was bright, sunny outside, but it was like these floating structures all out of like crystalline glass, but transparent enough you could see through it. I just remember that there were a bunch of people, like light colored, but not like skin complexions like that we have down here, but more of like white-ish, like literally like pale. But they all had like similar clothing, bald, and I think they kind of had some shiny skin almost. But I just remember helping them somehow. Don't know why, don't know where I was. But the one thing I remember is all of these big ships coming in and mechanical dinosaurs came out, which was too specific because I wasn't watching anything around the time with mechanical beings at all. So I don't know if maybe you've been able to encounter somebody that has seen some kind of mechanical beings that are trying to harm people, because I'm not gonna lie, it looked pretty fucking cool, but it was terrifying and I knew that they were hurting others. So I don't know what that was, but
right. So yes, I've heard of that on Arcturus, I believe. I did a session. It's probably been 3 or 4 months back. But in that session, my client went to that planet. And ultimately, she was there to raise the vibration of that planet to keep out what wasn't meant for them. And in one part of her session, she went to this beach where all of a sudden these mechanical things came up out of the water. Imagine like Godzilla.
Transformers, like Transformer dinosaurs, like dead ass. That's what these were. Like they just came down or out of the water, whatever. Wow. Okay. So that's
a thing.
You know, I feel like, have you guys ever watched Rick and Morty?
Bitch!
Yeah. Okay. Every time I watch Rick and Morty, I literally feel like I'm sitting in a session. Right? They talk about all of this, all of it, everything. Yes. Like, I'll have a session, and then like my husband likes Rick and Morty, and I'll go in that night, and we'll be watching it, and I'm like, no fucking way.
Yes, like the stuff that they talk about, like just it's a dope cartoon. If y'all haven't seen it, y'all need to see it. Yeah, I went to the Rick and Morty the Rickmobile like before COVID, where they toured around and they were selling exclusive merch. It was so freaking fun. It's such a funny ass show. I love that. I love that show.
So have you like what's going on with Mars? And was there an atmosphere? Right. I've heard about the Martians as well. Go into that a little bit if you can.
So I've done a couple of sessions now where clients have gone to Mars. I've actually got a couple of sessions posted too. But in the sessions that my clients went to, they both held very much the same platform, right? Like the same storyline where ultimately they are dropped off on the planet to survive, to see how long they can survive, to be like the strongest being to make it through, right? But they're dropped off by extraterrestrials. And on this planet, there are parts of it that are very open. But then over half of the planet, from what I understand, is covered in caves. And they actually had to retreat to the caves because...
What time frame is just for clarity?
So when I asked about the one I'm talking about, this would have been like after the dinosaur period, like after that, but like well before like Christianity and religion really came about. But in this session, my client basically was stuck in a cave. And I'm like, why are you stuck? I can't go out. Why? Why are you not allowed to go out? And so I started going back, trying to figure out what in the hell was going on here. These reptilian-like beings basically chase them if they come out of the cave. They are too big to enter into the cave. So both of the lives where people went, they literally fucking starved to death because they couldn't leave the cave, because if they did, these beings were ripping them apart.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah.
It's freaking rough.
So there was a lot of trauma there, and that's the thing that like what we do is like so incredible because there's trauma from those lifetimes.
Yeah.
Terrible.
I've even had, like the session I had today, it was a very, very intense session where my client was burned at the stake in the life that he was trying to get into. But there was so much trauma. I could not get him to go into that body. I had to bring him to like a movie theater and have him sit back and watch it happen. Because it was such a traumatic ending and a traumatic life that his soul was just like, nope, I'm not reliving that. I'm not doing that. So then as soon as I brought the movie theater up, the whole life just came for him.
Wow. I feel like that's a common theme with a lot of starseeds is like burning at the stake, witches.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When we had our abilities online and other people didn't understand it, we were called witches and
Yeah.
and so I feel like that's a really common theme too. And that
It's
comes
sad.
through the next lifetime. And like
Yeah.
all of a sudden we have a fear of this or that, and we don't understand why we have that fear.
Trust issues left and right.
Yeah. I do a lot of sessions with people who come with such power, right? Like we are all very powerful beings. We just haven't found our power yet. And a lot of people that feel it but can't find it, they're suppressing it because of a past life, because they were murdered for speaking their truth. And so in their current life, they're scared to speak that truth in fear that's going to happen to them again.
Right.
That's crazy.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Well, wow. Well, thank you, Abby, for talking about these experiences. I want to listen more, so I'm going to have to catch up when I get back. But
yeah,
I got to hop off.
Have a great concert, Savita.
Okay. See you later, Savita.
This is going to be a great end to the show. Just keep going.
We'll see you later.
All right, guys. I'll see you soon.
All right.
Bye.
So Abby, let's talk a little bit about, now that we've gone into past lives, maybe we can talk about reincarnation, what we're doing on the other side in between lives, and then possibly like how lives fit together and what this whole soul journey is on. Because like from my guides and from channeling, it's kind of like clear yourself of the all-knowing, of the all-being, right? Clear yourself of being source consciousness, right? Remove that whole memory, start fresh as a new soul, which is just sort of like almost like a droplet coming off of the water, right?
Yeah.
And then this new light being, this soul, whatever, it's just like accumulating data, and it's moving through all of the different levels, basically just to get back to source again. And that's, and then whatever we have to do fits into that journey, whatever experiences we needed to have. And those vibrational experiences that we have actually rub off on us, right? Imprint us, whatever. It's a skill you learned or it's a thing you went through. But, what can people, I don't know how to kind of ask this, but like, how can we tap into like our past lives to kind of inform what we're doing in this life? Is there something there?
Yeah, I ask this all the time, like even to the higher self, like how can people tap in and not be under hypnosis? Meditation is what I hear every time, that we live in a world that's extremely loud. Life is loud, earth is loud. And in order to tap in, you have to quiet that down, because not everybody is like us and can just channel and have that connection. They have to meditate to learn how to acknowledge the thought, but then let it go and go back to meditation to get those things. Like souls on their evolution journey, every life that you live, it fits into like the past lives, right? So for instance, like your purpose in this life, could be to be a healer. You're here to help humanity heal and evolve and get where humanity's supposed to be going, right? And in a past life, you may have had that purpose, but maybe you couldn't accomplish it because you were burned at the stake, or because you lived a life where you couldn't be true to who you were. So it's almost like when you can't do it in that life, you got to try it again. Now, you don't live the same life over again, but you do have the same purpose. And it seems as though Earth, they evolve much quicker at a much faster pace than any other planet. And I think it's because there's just a lot of crap. There's so much that goes on, here on Earth. And all of the stuff that we have to go through as souls, it helps us evolve quicker. And so that is what the fascination is with coming here in the first place, is they can go to Mars, right, and have like a small purpose and go grow a little bit, or they can come to Earth and go through a little bit of hell, but evolve exponentially to where maybe they don't have to reincarnate. Maybe they can go on to be a spirit guide, or they can go on to be part of the council, or a light being, or doing something where where they don't have to incarnate back into another life. But that takes lots of time, many years.
Yeah, it's a lot of work coming here, and I love when you say go through a little bit of hell.
A little bit.
Because to a lot of us right now, I love when you say that because it makes me appreciate it. But right now, I know it seems like a lot of hell to all of us, because even as healers and spiritual people that have healed through a lot of trauma, like we still have a very, very hard time ourselves.
Yes.
We still have things to work through. And that's why I think that the energy is so intense right now. And it's cool that you're doing the work that you do and you're staying focused on helping people through this, because it seems so hard. Sometimes you don't have a guide. You don't have the ability to tap into those things yourself. So thank you for doing the work that you do. It's incredible.
Yeah. One of my favorite things about doing BQH and QHHT is when you're doing your sessions, the higher self will come through and give me my own messages to keep going. And that's one of my favorite things out of doing this. I love when the higher self is like, nope, we have a message for you, because it's a message that I didn't ask for and I'm not expecting it. And usually, even if it's just little, it can lunge you forward so much on your journey.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. When I channel, I constantly do this with clients. I'll have someone on the phone and we'll just be chatting for the first 20 minutes or whatever. And then I'll be like, listen, I don't know. I can't help you with this. Let's channel something. And then the channel it's crazy. The channel will literally pick up on things, just things that we would never know about. And I feel like that it is it's not even really just to call it my work, because it's not. It's it's something that's happening through what I'm doing, but it's you can tap in there and people call it the Akashic Records or something, but it's some kind of information source that is you, but it's a more expanded version.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you could give any advice to people who are watching, what is a good way to try and connect with your higher self on your own?
I'm going to sound like a broken record, but honestly, the best way to connect is through meditation. Set the intentions. Set the intention and ask your higher self energy, the vibration, pull it in to your meditation session and ask your higher self to make that energy known. You want to feel it, whether it's a vibration or a warmth or anything. Ask your higher self to really show themselves to you, and they will. The best way to connect with them, though, is directly through meditation. You can go into it and call them in with the pure intention to only connect with your higher self. So all of the information that you get in that session is coming directly from your higher self.
What would you say to people that they do this and they're not getting messages right away, and they're like, I don't hear anything?
Be patient. Be patient, because this is the thing. The higher self will only give you what you need when you need it. If you're trying to connect and you're like, damn it, I'm not going. Don't give up, because you're going to do this, and the higher self's just going to be there. When it's your turn and when the higher self is ready to come through and to speak, without a doubt, you will know that that's the energy that's present.
Yeah. I would recommend, just for people who want to channel, start like she said, quiet, be very quiet. And then, I don't know what everyone else wants to do, but when I just sat down and I was like, okay, who am I channeling? And then the word Michael came through, and I was like, okay, that sounds good. Or no, it was Gabriel, and I didn't even know Gabriel yet. So and then people describe him as like the sort of messenger of God. So that makes sense. Okay. And then I just sort of sat quietly and like would either hear a message and then speak it out loud, or visualize something, describe it. And even like if you want to practice, record it and then, listen to it later. So just like take your time and just speak, speak, almost like you're literally having a conversation with your higher self.
Yeah.
How do you, what's like I mean, I don't want to like divulge too many of your secrets. I don't know if this is a secret or I don't know how this stuff works, but like, do you just kind of like, you sit someone down or they're on the phone, right?
It's through Zoom. So like through an app like this.
Okay. And then it takes a couple minutes to get them into like, do they close their eyes? Is it kind of like a...
Yes.
Okay.
So I do several different things. I personally use the BQH scripting because I like that one the best. So I do like a water alchemy scripting where we create an intention, and then I read through a scripting where we basically infuse our intention and our energy in our water. And at the end, we both drink that water, and the water infuses our bodies, and ultimately sets the energy for receiving that back to us.
Wow.
I have found when you set an intention, the sessions are very, very powerful, because that's the energy that you're putting in. That's what you're going to get back. And then there is a little bit of like a mind and heart coherence scripting where I really get them comfortable. And this is ultimately like, I don't even start getting them into the trance yet, but with this scripting, it calms them way down. They focus on their breathing, they focus on their heart. And then I just kind of go right through. It's a script that I read off of, but through BQH, it's just that main scripting.
Yeah, and then it becomes, and with BQH, it becomes more intuitive based on what your guides are telling you to work with.
Yes, absolutely. And even still, like with BQH, there's a lot of times where in BQH you'll go through the scripting and the people like will just instantly, like their breath, that's how I know. Right before they go into that hypnotic state, they take a deep breath. Like they're just releasing. Yes. And like the head will fall forward or it will fall backwards. But that's how I know, like, okay, we're there. Through doing this, I've created like an exercise that I do before I even go into the scripting where I have them get into like a centered state. I'll have them take some breaths, and then I will vocalize a scenario. Imagine you're in California. It's rush hour. You can hear the cars. You can hear the radio. You can feel the sun. And then I'll ask, like, do you visualize this scene? And that is really letting me know what senses they use, because not everyone is visual. If you are more of a feeler, I have to ask feeling questions. And this exercise in the beginning, I feel, is honestly the most important because it gives me an idea and it gives my client an idea of exactly how they're going to see it, how they're going to feel it, and what senses they'll be able to use.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Would you say when you're doing these Zoom sessions, do people mostly sit up and do it, or do they lay down?
It really depends. I suggest that people either lay down or lay back against something, because when you do hit that hypnotic state, your head will fall forward. And staying like this for 2 hours can be very painful. So I like to keep them as comfortable as they can. And if you can have somewhere to lay your head back on, then that's usually what happens, is they'll just lay their head backwards and continue the session.
That is so cool that you can do that on Zoom.
Yes.
So cool.
I'm curious to hear more, if you don't mind, about other planets. This one friend of mine on TikTok, we were talking about Sirius, which I don't really have any experience with, but the way that she was describing it was completely natural and like beings lived out in nature. And so kind of more of like the Arcturian side of me understands like futurism or like living in advanced civilizations, but then there's also this like complete opposite thing. So
Yeah.
Whatever your favorite experience is.
So, like me personally, I'm Palladian, so I love the Palladian culture. It's very, very, very advanced. And any time that I do sessions and I go to this place, it just the buildings are all glass. It's very, very advanced, but it looks very much like what we know here, except our vehicles and stuff doesn't fly. So, that's like one of the big differences. But like Sirius B, it's always described as the brightest colors you've ever seen. Bright greens, bright reds, the flowers are almost like vibrant and they look like they're in 3D. And the beings, they're tall, or they're not all the same. Like they're different light beings. There's really, really tall light beings. There's shorter light beings. I had a client who went there and she's like, well, this is kind of weird. I feel human and my skin looks human, but when I look at my face, I do not look human at all. So I think every planet is different. Some planets, it feels like there's a harmony, where there are different light beings that live together and they live in peace. I did a session a couple days ago, and she did not know the name of the planet. It started with an A, and that's all we got. But ultimately, it was a planet where they lived in the clouds, and I thought that was
wow.
So yeah, it was a very vibrant planet, and I was like, well, where's your house? Well, in the clouds. And so I was like, okay, well, can you describe it for me? And so basically, she explained that there was very much a nature scene, but that when you were ready to go home, you just thought of your home and it would appear in the clouds. And then you would transcend to, to the clouds. Yeah, I'm trying to think. So, and I don't know. So I had a client that went to this place that was ultimately like her soul creation, but said that she was part of the stars. Like she was originally stardust that formed into a soul. And much kind of like the background that we see here, that is what I kept envisioning when she was in this place. And she was like, there are millions of us, millions and millions and millions of us. And I'm like, well, what do you do in this space? And it was all energy. So they just existed. They just were. They could interact with their own soul family and they could do their own thing, but it wasn't anything like what we have here on Earth or, even in other planets where you live a life. Where this place was more of a space that you would go back to in between, but it was its own place. Because I was like, well, how far away from Earth is it? Many, many, many light years away. It takes a long time to get there, they'll say. So there's so many different planets even that are brought up, and the names, like I did a session that's actually on my TikTok a couple weeks back where my client was a mermaid, Mahakash.
Yeah, I've seen
Mahakash.
these. Yeah.
Okay, that was the name of the planet. Yeah, Mahakash was the name of the planet, and she was a mermaid. There was just mermaid beings on this planet, and she was there monitoring a species of like particles of molecules that turned into like spots on the coral, and it was growing. And basically it was a planet that had exploded, and the planet exploded because the beings on the planet were just very low vibration, and they ultimately ended up causing that to happen. And when it hit her planet, she basically just had to monitor it. And that's what she spent that entire life doing, was monitoring what was growing in the coral to make sure that it didn't kill the coral life.
Wow. That's so cool.
Yeah.
So cool.
So basically just
good.
Basically just almost like guiding or watching over something in the physical from the astral world.
Yes. Essentially, yeah. She had this ball of light, which I kind of think maybe it was a Merkaba, because that's ultimately like a ball of light that you can travel in. But she was working with the Galactic Federation in this life. And when I asked her which being of the Galactic Federation was she working with, she explained that it was a masculine energy, and he had the body of a human but the head of a fish.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. What do you I want to hear what you have to say about this twin flame situation.
Oh my goodness.
If you have any
That's a whole subject.
if you have any,
yeah.
we can talk about that and then obviously like in context to like past souls or past lives or this whole soul journey we were kind of talking about earlier.
Yeah. So twin flames, what I understand is there was once a time, many thousands and thousands of years ago, where ultimately the soul was split in between masculine and feminine. And the soul was split at that time to allow the soul to experience both sides of the masculine and of the feminine. Now, the twin flames have turned into what it is today, and people try to have like a union with their twin flame. When ultimately your twin flame is supposed to be the shadow side of who you are. Your twin flame is everything you don't like about yourself. Everything. Yes. And so that is why unison with a twin flame is so fucking hard, because you are looking at the side of yourself that you don't fucking like, and then you've got this being. Yes, I know. And
So
you've got this other.
Everybody wants to find their twin flame. That doesn't sound fun.
Let's slow this down a little bit. Okay.
I have no idea. I believe that twin flames are very karmic. Not all. And not everyone is a twin flame. Not everyone has experienced that split. But in 90% of cases, twin flames are very karmic. They are, your same soul coming together, but you're clashing. And no matter what you do, you clash. There is someone that consistently gets their heart broken, and there is someone that is consistently running, causing that heartbreak, and it doesn't end. It doesn't end.
Hey.
And so it's tough when it comes, especially like in soul journeys. Yeah.
I guess we have to end it, right?
Yes, and when it comes to twin flames, you'll spend many lives chasing them. You will spend many lives.
For what purpose? Is it just to improve?
It's to improve. It's to improve, to evolve, to grow within your own shadow self, to accept and approve of that shadow self that you're not fond of. But it's hard to do that in human form, because that shadow self is fucking hurtful. And that shadow self is just going to continue to break your heart until you're like, nope, I'm done. I was with my twin flame for 7 years, from like a teenager up until I was like 22. And I didn't realize that he was a twin flame until many years later. But even still, I find myself like telepathically having that communication, and I'm like, no, go away. I cut you off. I'm done. But when I was able to cut that connection with my twin flame, I was able to figure out who I was. I wasn't so focused on, what am I supposed to learn here? Why are we not together? Why can I not make this work? It was more of like they were supposed to help me be who I am. They showed me all of the things about myself that I needed to work on. And so I feel like that's a big part of the twin flame journey. Now, eventually, it is possible for union, but that can be thousands of years. That can be thousands of lives to find that union. And it's ultimately up to you, your waking self, to decide how much are you going to tolerate? How many heartbreaks are you going to allow before you say, this is not the life?
What? Oh, that sounds treacherous.
I feel like a lot of this, I'm just gonna vent a little bit. I feel like we're chill now, and then we'll wrap in a couple minutes. We can ask you a couple more questions, or you can ask us a question or something. But
yeah,
I just feel like so many things about the world are like not true, and I just keep like, I mean, is romance not even true? Like I'm like at the point where I'm like, all right, are my guides even real? Like, what's happening? Because I'm just questioning everything now.
On this journey, yeah.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And like, Source just has me out on a ledge right now, like just way out in like okay, if you guys don't come through for me, like I'm trusting to the max. So
yes,
I think that's how
I
a lot
don't know
of
what's going on
right now.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I mean, even me, even doing this work, I have days where I'm like, I've got this shit, I can do this. And then I have other days where I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? What am I doing?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for admitting that.
Yes.
I feel like that every morning and every night.
Yes.
I just wake up in the middle of the night like, you're crazy. Just be
suggestion,
normal.
right? I want to make a suggestion to you guys and to everyone else, because this is what helps me get back into alignment. If I'm feeling really hopeless in those moments, go make contact. Go make contact and do like because this is what I help people with. Go outside in a place where you can see the stars and make a contact meditation for yourself. Open up your heart and ask your galactic family or anyone that's here to assist us to show themselves, and you will see them. And when you physically are able to see them, you'll stop doubting everything in that moment. It will give you so much hope and so much faith. And this is why I am committed to doing that. And I help people make contact, because when you're able to see that and feel that, you stop all the doubting. You stop all the doubting. Is this real? Is this, what the fuck am I doing? Did I just go off on some spiritual tangent and I start teaching this fucking alien stuff? Like, what am I doing? Maybe everybody is right. Maybe I am crazy. And we go through this fucking, I don't know. But that's why this is so important for us to be talking about this and getting it out there, that there are people that probably live in a rural city or town that are not exposed to a lot of people, that are awake, that are like us, that feel completely alone on this journey and probably feel really crazy. So like, I think what we're doing here is so big and so important. And for anybody that's listening, you should be doing the same. Like, get up and speak out, and don't listen to anyone who's telling you to be quiet and keep quiet, and like, get the fuck out here with us and speak up. And because it helps all of us feel like we are not alone, because we really aren't, even though it feels like that a lot of the time. Us connecting is the most important thing that we can do right now.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, even the concept of alone, it's like your source consciousness. This meditation I just did a couple days ago was like everything, like even your worry and the stress, that is still source consciousness. Like, you don't ever escape it. So it's like, I don't know, for me, it's been kind of like a separation and like going into hermit mode, right? Or the hermit card, going into isolation so much that you realize that you've always been around everything and everything is you. And it's, you know what I mean? It's like, you have to learn that hard way that like, you're never alone, and it's all happening in the right timing. But it's just whatever test, I've said this to people, whatever test you're going through in your life, whatever challenges that you're actually going through right now, you set up for yourself because you could overcome them. You wouldn't set yourself up for failure. You know what I mean? I don't even know if failure is a real thing, but like, just, your energy, the strength that you have is a good match, we'll say, to the obstacles that you have to overcome in this life, whatever they are.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, if there's anything else, why don't we talk about, or I was going to ask you, do you do these sort of things on YouTube, meditations that people can listen to? Do we already have like a...
I don't, but I have started my own YouTube, and I'm starting to get some things built to actually like have it be a public page where people can go to have a guided meditation to connect to your higher self, to connect to your spirit guides, or just to connect to that universal energy. I'm working on it. It's just not up and running yet.
We'll tie that into, with your permission, we'll tie that into the Starseed Academy, and we'll
absolutely, when
we have this whole thing, we'll feature you. And then, so let's just talk about where people can contact you, how they can schedule a booking with you, all your social media. Just give us the whole breakdown right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm on TikTok. It's Psychic Medium Abby Ice. I have a link tree in my bio that kind of gives you the link to all the different things that I have. TheAngelicSoul.com is my website. From there, you can book any type of session. I also own a crystal shop, and I have that linked as well. I'm also on Etsy. Etsy is where I do some readings on Etsy, but I have a lot of the crystals that we sell on Etsy. And it's under the Angelic Soul Crystals. So all of that links all back to each other.
Awesome. Beautiful. Awesome. Bougie, you want to take us out, and then we will end the broadcast?
Yeah. So first of all, I'd like to show you, Abby. Let me see if I can show you my background here. You've got to see this. Because we are sisters here.
Oh, I love it.
Come on.
Yeah, you guys are like, you guys are both on my For You page with that same background, like one after the other.
I love it. I love it. It was the biggest one I could find. That's what I wanted. I was trying to find the biggest one I could find.
Yeah, it's so fun.
All right. That's it. That's it for the show. Thanks, guys. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you in the next broadcast.
All right.
Awesome.
Bye,
Thanks,
everyone.
guys. Bye.